bracelet. Would you please send me all the candles of poise that you have and 5 them to me now? Because I'm going to need them. Okay? I'm going to need poise for today. All right, so if Ken Atkinson was here right now, and it was all you all were campers, he'd come in and he'd just milk it. Look at you all you campers. And then all of a sudden, he'd go, "Welcome to night of two!" Except the voice would be a little different, huh? You think I need this?
You need it for the stream.
Oh, for up there. Oh, crap. Okay. I'm not going to be able to hold it the whole time because I got to use my hands sometimes. We're going to do something similar. We are going to shower all of the love and the stories about Ken in this council ring. And that will be the substance of what we're doing today. But there are a few things that I would like to tell you first about Ken's background, because if you were a camper here and a counselor, you may not have known all of this. So probably the essence of Ken was music. And he really it was in his blood. It was just like Hermione said to Harry Potter about Quidditch. "It's in your blood, Harry," right? Well, it was in Ken's blood. And his mother, Fran, was the organist at Park Hill Methodist Church. And that's how she knew the Gilmores. And his father had this wonderful, rich bass voice. And he would sing solos at a lot of the churches, and he did radio too. He had a wonderful, deep voice. Ken seemed to get some of that, I think. And then his brother and sister played the oboe and the cello, so when little Kenny came along, he had to have some kind of instrument. Well, later on, it was pretty much his voice, but he did learn how to do all kinds of musical instruments. And when Fran would come up, his mother, to accompany things in the chapel, etc., she would bring little Kenny. And little Kenny would romp around the chapel and get into trouble. And I hate to tell you, but I was probably a CIT when little Kenny was doing that. Can't help it. That's what happened. So, but he didn't actually become a camper till he was 7. And he was in a dorm with the legendary Shafiq Khalad from Lebanon. And everybody loved Shafiq, and he was so wise, and he realized right away that Kenny hated camp. He was homesick. He didn't want to be there. But Shafiq knew that he could play the trumpet and the cornet. And so he worked it out so that taps was played by little Kenny. Well, let's go ahead till Ken is he's in the end of his college years, and it's 1977, and he's going to be a counselor. And we're in the lodge, and Lady Iris Gilmore is sitting very regally in a chair welcoming the new counselors. And of course I went up and I oohed and gooed over and loved on her. And this is when I need both hands. Anyway, and she said, "Oh," now she didn't point. She gestured. She went to Ken, towards Ken. And then she came over to me very closely and she said, "I have someone you are going to love." And I did. So that summer of 77, American Heritage, there was no Miss and Magic, so right after orientation, and the orientation was not as long as it is now, Ken and I wrote a meloretta. It was a melodrama that we put some of the camp songs to, and we did it because we could hardly take showers at all. And everybody just hated that. The counselors were complaining about it. We had no water. It was one of those really dry summers. And because we were so restricted, so this meloretta was called April's Shower. And April, little girl from the Dish Crew, wanted to take a shower so much. And of course, the villain was trying to get all of us to waste water. And the villain's name was Driplash. And guess who the villain was? And so the songs that we used were a lot of camp songs. So Ken's first song that he sang in the melodrama to let him know who he was, remember, it's a deep, deep voice. I am Driplash, I'm a cad. I'm all rotten, I'm really bad. And then he would do this wonderful laugh that my boys love so much at Halloween. It was a scary laugh. And everybody loved the meloretta. So that summer in '77, we did 3 more musicals. And one of them was Camelot. And guess who was King Arthur? Then another one was Godspell. Guess who was Jesus Christ? Also, would you like to know who Judas was? Rick Roadruck. And I believe Steve Anthony was Robert Duvalier, Robert Duvall. We got Mr. Duvall in there. So did you sing too? I guess you did. Good, in the first melodrama. Okay. So that same summer, '77, Knighthood won. They award Ken the Silver Spur. 2 weeks later, Knighthood 2, they award Ken the Gold Star. So you know what? They figured out that they had somebody who could really lead. He was a leader, born leader, and he could talk to everybody on their level. He listened, and if you were a counselor with him, you know that. So I got to look at my notes here for a second. So he'd gone to a school in Kansas, and then he finished up at Metro. And when he was at Metro, Jerry McCullum was the one that helped him, and he wanted to be a choir director like you and like Jerry. But in the end, when we were married in the end of summer '79, he ended up being a camp director. That didn't actually happen for a couple of years, but the only problem with that was that, as I said, music was so important to him. So, I mean, he adored Bach and Brubeck and Count Basie. And you know what? You're singing Baby Bumblebee. But so that was another reason that Canterbury was so important to him, because he could actually sing some songs that he was meant to sing at Canterbury. And we so appreciate you all coming and helping sing, because it's going to mean a lot. We are a singing camp, and it's something I really want you all to remember. And I wrote this out because it meant so much to me. Our songs at Geneva Glen are like hymns, and they vibrate through our hearts, plucking the strings of memory and challenging our emotions to treasure the place. Like, I know a place where no one ever goes. Okay, remember that one? They are the chimes of our tradition. So today, because we love this place and we love Ken, we are going to ring those chimes. Okay, does that sound good? So Brooke's gonna Brooke Lindquist, who was also a queen of the Glen, but she was also one of the first kids I grabbed to get into Peter Pan when she was. They do anything I tell them to. But also she sings really well. So thank you, Brooke. I appreciate
welcome.
you doing this. Oh, do I give this to her?
No, I don't need it. My name's Brooke. It's so good to see all of you and to honor Ken in this way. We are starting with Here We Are Together, and we'll just greatest and most humble man I've ever known. He'd have us in stitches, cracking jokes with the straightest face behind the council ring as we prepared for our cheerleader skit, or as he was exaggerating the Raindrops song as we sang, as we opened our mouths singing but. I don't know if you guys ever saw him do that, but he was quite something. And then 10 minutes later, he would sit with me talking of God, of humanity, of beauty, and of goodness, and of the depth of love he had for camp and his camp family. He set the standard for what it means to live from your heart, to celebrate life, to love gently and fiercely, to soak in beauty, and to stand firmly in your values. Ken was so huggable. He was so Ken. My memories of him are too vast, too expansive, too many to pick just one or two to describe. So I'll just say that he was my mentor, my role model, my teacher, Chip's dad. I looked to him to learn how to live a life of goodness and love. He moved into the deepest part of my heart 43 years ago, and he has lived there ever since. And he will continue to live there for as long as I live. I miss him every single day, and I love him. Thanks.
Friends, thank you for being here to honor the gifts that Ken all gave us. I'm Reed, this is Krista. We're the directors here at Geneva Glen. Before we get started, we wanted to just do a little bit of housekeeping. There's tissues and stuff if you need to step outside for a brief minute. Lord knows that happens. Your closest restrooms, if you need to use the lodge, those are available to you. We also have the stream is viewing over there if you need to step out for any reason. Following the service, we're going to have light refreshments in the top of the lodge. And we also want to invite you, we have some cards over there. We would love for you all, as you hear everything that's talked about today, to share your memories of Ken, to write those down and share those so that we can keep those perpetuating in Geneva Glen. We would just love to have those cherished memories. And lastly, we're going to have this space available to you. After this is over, we invite you to stay. We invite you to share your memories. We invite you to sing, laugh, love, lift, all the things that Ken taught us how to do. So thank you for being here, and it's an honor to honor Ken's gifts today.
All right. We wanted to start by painting a picture of Ken's gifts that he gave us. So let's just start by visualizing Ken right now. He'd be walking around camp, his keys would be dangling at his side, and he'd have that he'd be able to retract them and pull them back really quickly. He'd always have his camera hanging around his neck, ready to capture the next shot. He had that giant metal clipboard all the time. We have no idea what he had in it. And then he also started wearing a fanny pack. We're not sure what was in there either. We also want to talk about Ken's clothes. In the 70s and 80s, he'd wear those kind of shorter shorts, OP maybe. In the 90s, he kind of graduated into having the cut-off jean shorts. And then finally, he got to the cargo shorts. We were really grateful for that. But if we want to keep talking about clothes, let's talk about those shirts, right? Ken had those classic shirts, the bird droppings. He loved his bird dropping shirt. The one with all the coffee stains, and that really cool Moody Blues shirt that he wore. Ken always kept his hair short, and he always had his classic beard.
Ken could do more with the word dude than anyone we have ever known. It was that first welcoming dude with that big Ken handshake that would wrap you up and make you feel so welcome. It was that excited dude when he had to show you that really cool new piece of technology that he was going to put in that fanny pack and carry around Geneva Glen camp. It was the quick little dudes as he walked up and down the meadow saying hi to the campers and staff. Dude, 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 dude. Making everybody feel like they belonged here. And of course, it was that sympathetic dude when you needed Ken to love you, when you needed Ken to give you that sympathetic, that loving nature that was so inherent to him.
Another one of his gifts was his voice. We all know he loved narrating Merlin's Mask. Or when we were all laying down in the cold chapel floor at the last day of winter workshop, and he would take us through the most amazing guided meditation journey that was so incredible. He also got to officiate a lot of weddings. Using the perfect words for each couple. It was an honor to have Ken perform your ceremony. Another one that we loved hearing was his voice over the talkie. Wildflower, this is Moses. It was perfect. Nancy could never hear it. She would never respond because she never had the talkie. But his voice will continue to resonate in all of our hearts forever.
For as poignant of a leader as he was always lighthearted. He was always goofy. It was the hilarious stories he told at Council Fire, like the split dog. It was his silly introductions for Wayne Faust the Banjo Man. It was reciting classic movie lines from Blazing Saddles. It was the sly look he had in his eye when the magic bell worked when he did the opening council ring with all the campers. And it was his jokes sometimes, maybe not something that we would repeat in front of everybody in the council ring right now, that just made us all laugh and feel like he was just endeared to all of us.
Many people look to Ken as a father figure. He provided advice, unconditional love, and support to all of us. He was kind. His pine tree for patience was strong, and his roots were really deep. He gave people second chances, and he had high expectations for everyone, and he expected you to rise up to your potential. Ken led by example. Everyone around Ken wanted to be like Ken and lead like Ken. He elevated every single person around him all the time.
He could capture the moment obviously physically with the camera around his neck. He would take hundreds of thousands of photos. He would label them. He would put every name, remembering every person that was in those photos. And then he would turn those into the incredible slideshows that would capture what 10 weeks of Geneva Glen was like. Beyond that, though, it was capturing the moment with all of us, that moment in the counseling at the beginning of a staff summer where we'd take that mental snapshot. It was rehashing what we were feeling, the experiences during in-services, during fellowships. It was processing this extraordinary experience that he understood, that he knew that we could feel, and he could tell us that and share it with us.
When Ken found something he loved to share it. That was one of his gifts. He loved sharing anything cool, new, or anything he loved. So a lot of the things he liked to share were like some of his favorite places. He loved to share about the Botanic Gardens, or going on his trips down to Santa Fe, or his love for Disney World. He also loved tons of restaurants, and he would always talk about them or try and take you to these restaurants like the Fort, also Fruition was another one, or that tiny like gas station Mexican restaurant right up 285 that he loved. He also loved sharing his favorite food, like the green olives that he loved, or that incredible guacamole that he made. One of the things that was kind of cool about Ken is if you were lucky enough to go up to Ken and Nancy's house, you were able to listen to that incredible sound system that he had. And he would sit there and play things like Mannheim Steamroller, like it was supposed to be played, and the whole house would be vibrating, and he'd just sit there with this giant smirk on his face.
One of his greatest gifts to us all was a love of nature. He was that bird watcher. He would take campers on treetop to tree line, showing them the Rocky Mountains, introducing Colorado to campers that had never seen it before. He loved the seasons changing. He loved the fall. He would go on long drives, even on a motorcycle, around Colorado to witness the state's beauty during autumn. And of course, when thinking about nature and animals, it was his love for his loyal dogs like Max and Huckleberry that Ken showed us how to cherish our animals.
Another one of his gifts was music, obviously. He was a song guru. He had a vast knowledge of songs from all eras and all genres. We would test his song knowledge with Pete LaFleur, and we would play and quiz them on their song wit. We would play one line of a song, and they'd battle back and forth, trying to like quickly say who the singer was, what the name of the song was, the title, the year it came out, and it was incredible. It was like these two musical databases just like battling back and forth. It was really incredible to watch. We also would like to share a letter that we received from Josie Warren. She was a camper and a staff member, and in 2017, she was head of song and music, and so she worked closely with Ken and Nancy on the songbook. And this is what she wanted to share. While writing the songbook together, I went to Ken's office every afternoon, where he would review the musical notes and sing songs of the past that I didn't know. His perfect pitch was incredible. The software I would use could play back a song, and after listening the whole way through, he'd say, "Oh, go back to that second line. You had an A there, and it should have been a B flat." I was always floored by his musical talents. There were a number of songs Ken and Nancy wanted to add to the book that were before my time at camp, and in order to make sure I got them right, I recorded them singing. So she was lucky enough to be able to record him singing all day, all night. And then she said she could still see him singing the song while sitting on the couch in his office on a sunny summer afternoon, his eyebrows lifting before each breath and brightly bouncing to the beat. And then she ended the note with, "Thanks for creating a space for all of us to reflect on Ken's glorious impact on so many of our lives. Josie Warren." Ken was an incredible song leader. There are so many songs we can remember. Some of his top favorites are, obviously Snap, Crackle, Pop, Dem Bones, and I Found a Horseshoe. So let's honor Ken's gift right now and let's sing I Found a Horseshoe.
Okay, friends. Let's sing it all once through together. Here we go. I Okay, can you stay with me? Should we do it? Yep. Here we go. I found a horseshoe. I found a horseshoe. I picked it up and put it on the wall. It was rusty and full of nail holes, but it brought good luck to me
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone, if you're out there. My name is Wendy Sue Grover, and I was a camper in the 80s and 90s, and on staff in the 90s. I'm going to get my paper. Which paper do I? That's not that one. A week ago, today, I fell off the shrine, and that is why I am sitting here with this. But right. Somebody said, was it Ty Peter Ennis who said, you know, you don't have to continue to convince the universe that you're a badass. So that was, Ken was with me in that moment, and I'm happy to share that with you guys afterwards, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. So, you know, during my years as a camper and as a counselor, Ken and Nancy had a tremendous impact on my life, just as they did for many of you. I also had the great honor to sing with Ken for nearly a decade, from 2004 to 2014, in the nationally renowned choir Cantori. Many of you are familiar with Cantori. During those years, I got to see aspects of Ken's gifts and personality that I had only seen glimpses of before. Ken brought a special spirit to Cantori. We loved having him with us so much that when he could not join us on our European tour in 2007 because it conflicted with the beginning of camp, we made a near life-size Ken face with his picture on a stick and took it with us everywhere we went in Europe. So we have a number of photos of Ken. I brought some with me today. And I'll have you guys hold it up. Yeah, thank you. So here's Ken in wine country, and at Saint-Chapelle in Paris, and at l'Arc de Triomphe. Can you guys see it? So, and we'll hold it up for you guys. Yeah, so that was really fun for us. We had a great time with that. It was also really hot when we were in Europe, so we fanned ourselves with Ken's face. Ken served as our spokesmodel in Cantori. and gave introductions and speeches to our audience at our concerts. He worked hard on those speeches, you guys, and always delivered them with grace and humor. Now, I may get in trouble for telling this story, although he knows I'm going to tell it, Mr. Larson. I also need it to be known that Ken and I did not act alone. There are some people here who were involved in this. But we started to dare Ken to use specific words during his spokesmodel speech. They were ridiculous words, like festooned, imbued, bedecked, big boy, and yes, even meow, which he put meow in 3 times in one concert. Ken accepted these challenges and really put his heart and soul into working these stupid words seamlessly into his speech. Once, he and some co-conspirators even changed the word we'd agreed upon just to punk me. Imagine my surprise when during the concert, Ken said to the audience in his deep bass voice, "It's so nice to be singing in this crisp fall weather instead of damp and moist conditions." The thing is, Ken always pulled it off every time. The audience just went along with whatever flowery, silly thing we made him say. Those who attended camp during those 10 years Ken was in Cantorai may remember Gigi Folk Song Night. A number of choir members would come up to camp and sing some songs as part of a special musical council fire. Many people who were campers and staff during that time have told me how special that was for them to see Ken really maximizing his musical gifts in every way. What you may not know is what those special nights meant to members of Cantorai. Seeing Ken in his element at camp, to appreciate his level of influence and leadership, to feel the magic of the Glen, made those nights ones that we will never forget. Do you guys hear that bird? They were incredibly meaningful to me personally, being a camp person and a Cantorai person, not unlike today with this special combined choir that we have, bringing these 2 worlds together around Ken's dazzling orbit was a special gift to me. My life has been forever changed for knowing Ken and calling him my dear friend. I will carry so many special memories with me through the rest of my life, and I know we can all almost hear Ken's voice singing loud and true from the other side, guiding us all home. We're on the upward trail.
Come on.
At camp for Vespers or whatever event he had us singing for. So we're just trying to figure out where we're going to stand and then.
Yeah. I just wanted to share. Is this on? Okay. I just wanted to share one of the things that Wendy alluded to. We absolutely love coming up here and singing for the kids. Sometimes they'd fall asleep when we were in the chapel. One time it was raining, so we were in the chapel, and I always remembered that the young boys would take the girls from Cantorai by the arm and walk them into the chapel, which was so wonderful. But we were singing, and Ken and I kind of talked about this a little bit, but I finally was going to introduce the last song, and I said, you know, I have this wonderful song, and I said, the thing I really feel bad about is I want you to hear it so bad, but the soloist isn't here tonight. The soloist can't make it, and I just don't think we can do a lot about that. And finally somebody came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder, and then they went back and we said, Ken, 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 Ken. That was a great night. We're going to sing 3 songs for you throughout the program tonight, and the first one that's very special was very special to Ken, and was the great Shannon.
All right, so my name is Alana Goen. This is my husband, Jeff Goen. And we're one of the, we did. We met at camp, and in a very similar story to what Nancy told about Ms. Gill, she kind of also did to us. So We are going to lead all of you in another camp song, which is Mountain Meadow. And for those of you that don't know this song, it's in the songbook, but it's also the song that's printed on the first inward page of the program. And we're probably not going to sing it in the key that's written, just so, because it's kind of high. There's a mountain meadow sparkling in the dew of early morn, and it's June in the Rockies once more. And the bluebirds are singing his old familiar song, and the aspens are rustling as before. But the sun isn't shining like it used to shine, for it knows you'll never come with me to that spot in the Rockies we loved so long ago, and my heart lies beneath the aspen tree. I can see in my dreams, dear, a campfire burning bright, and a million mountain stars high above, and the wind in your hair as we race the silvery loom to the edge of that meadow above. But the moon isn't gleaming like it used to be, for it knows you'll never come with me to that spot in the Rockies we loved so long ago, and my heart lies beneath the aspen tree. Thank you. That was beautiful. And now Jeff has a story.
Oh, this isn't gonna go well. I try not to look at any of you. If I look at somebody, it'll just make it worse. I cried at my own wedding, and that was the happiest day of my life. Let's see if I can get through this. Anyway, I knew Ken thought a lot about me because he liked to make fun of me. The last story I gave him was as a police officer and pulling over the Riki family, and and he told it at his Sam's funeral, right? Sam's funeral. And yeah, so humor was a huge part. Motorcycles. We talked a lot about motorcycles. Nancy, whenever you'd like, just let me know and I will throw you on the back of a motorcycle. Take you somewhere. But the most meaningful story to me happened during knighthood. In the summer of 2000, I got my gold star. I've had to do this a lot in the last few years. You think I'd be better at it? All right. The Armor Scarred is a part of this. The gold star process, all the gold stars get up and they start talking. Well, Ken gets up and starts talking. And he keeps talking and he keeps talking. And you're trying to listen to the words and you're trying to think, like, who is he talking about? And it's supposed to be, we usually trade off. There's 2 or 3 people that speak before you get your award. But Ken just kept talking. And at the end, he gave the gold star to me. And I didn't know how much it meant at the time until Thormsgard came up later I was like, I was supposed to talk about you as well, but he got in one of those, where he's in his zone and just finished out the thing. That meant more to me than anything else. It was just that it was a mistake, but it was out of the ordinary, which made it really special. Oh, and he loved telling stories about my grandfather, and how I think their humor was very similar. I've learned all the dirty camp songs, and my wife threatens that if I ever sing them, that she'll hurt me. But he's the reason I am who I am, and I loved him.
Do I need a mic? Okay. Yes, I need a mic. Oh, the power. Okay. My name's John Vogt. I am not going to do any justice if I do an introduction to this, so I just want to share one of the poems that Ken would use to share some of his gifts, and I'm going to do my own sort of imitation to try and channel what I can of Ken into this council ring. So this is one of the ones he would share with us all the time. The cremation of Sam McGee. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The Northern Lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge, I cremated Sam McGee. Now, Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton blooms and blows. Why he left his home in the South to roam round the pole, God only knows. He was always cold, but the land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell, though he'd often say in his homely way, he'd sooner live in hell. On a Christmas day, we were mushing our way over the Dawson Trail. Talk of your cold! Through the parka's fold, it stabbed like a driven nail. If our eyes we'd closed, then the lashes froze till sometimes we couldn't see. It wasn't much fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. And that very night, as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow, and the dogs were fed, and the stars o'erhead were dancing heel and toe, he turned to me and, "Cap," says he, "I'll cash in this trip, I guess. And if I do, I'm asking you that you won't refuse my last request." Well, he seemed so low I couldn't say no. Then he says with a sort of moan, "It's the cursed cold, and it's got right hold till I'm chilled clean through to the bone. Yet 'tain't being dead, it's my awful dread of the icy grave that pains. So I want you to swear that, foul or fair, you'll cremate my last remains." A pal's last need is a thing to heed, so I swore I would not fail. And we started on at the streak of dawn, but God, he looked ghastly pale. He crouched on the sleigh and he raved all day of his home in Tennessee, and before nightfall a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. Now there wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried horror-driven with a corpse half hid that I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. It was lashed to the sleigh, and it seemed to say, "You may tax your brawn and brains, but you promised true, and it's up to you to cremate those last remains." Now, a promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stern code. In the days to come, though my lips were dumb, in my heart, oh, how I cursed that load. In the long, long night by the lone firelight, while the huskies round in a ring howled out their woes to the homeless snows, oh, God, how I loathed that thing. And every day that quiet clay seemed to heavy and heavier grow, and on I went, though the dogs were spent and the grub was getting low. The trail was bad, and I felt half mad, but I swore I would not give in. And I'd often sing to the hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin. Till I came to the marge of Lake Labarge, and a derelict there lay. It was jammed in the ice, but I saw in a trice it was called the Alice May. And I looked at it, and I thought a bit, and I looked at my frozen chum, and then, "Here," said I, with a sudden cry, "is my crematorium." Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I lit the boiler fire. Some coal I found that was laying around, and I heaped the fuel higher. The flames just soared, and the furnace roared, such a blaze you seldom see. And I burrowed a hole in the glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. Then I made a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so. Oh, Ken, sizzle so. And the heavens scowled, and the huskies howled, and the wind began to blow. It was icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my cheeks, and I don't know why. And the greasy smoke in an inky cloak went streaking down the sky. I do not know how long in the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but the stars came out and they danced about. Here again I ventured near. I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, "I'll just take a peep inside. I guess he's cooked, and it's time I looked." And then the door I opened wide, and there sat Sam, looking cool and calm in the heart of the furnace roar. And he wore a smile that you could see a mile, and he said, "Please, close that door. It's fine in here, but I greatly I fear you'll let in the cold and storm. And since I've left Plumtree down in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm." There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. Ooh. The Northern Lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Labarge, I cremated Sam McGee. Right. It's so wonderful we've heard so much talk about song and laughter. Let's sing another song that is maybe not always affiliated with laughter. There was the song side of Ken. He knew how to hold silly and sacred in the same space. And silly has a nobility of its own, and if you know Ken, you know that to be true. And I'll talk more about this when I get into my memories of Ken, but because I am so long-winded, I will spare you all that until after the ceremony, when we're like sharing our memories of Ken. What? Oh, right. So, but for now, let us all sing "Peace I Ask of Thee, O River." This is one of his favorite fellowship songs. It's in the bulletin there for those of you who don't know it. All right. Thank you. If I can. From the Steve Anthony. Here you are.
My name's Steve Anthony. In 1977, I was introduced to Geneva Glen Camp 46 years ago. I didn't know what this was all about other than John and Paul Woodward said, "You're going to love this place." And I did, and I still do. And one of the reasons I do love this place is because of a man I met that year, Ken Atkinson. Bob and Carol Duvall introduced me to people here. Ken, Nancy, Rick, a man named Doug Easterling who went on to found Tierra del Fuego for World Friendship, the land of the flaming avocados. Janet Enger, who was my partner in working in arts and crafts. And there's so many others. I'd be here all evening trying to recall. One of the first things I did was work with Ken and Nancy in evening play productions. I was immediately intrigued and caught up in the program and the focus of the sessions, particularly knighthood. That struck a chord in me and in Ken and in most men that I know of that makes us men. In each session, I could count on Ken, being the head since I was head of Boys Hill, I could count on Ken to be caught up and intrigued in the program. And I found him to be a leader, fully invested in engaging in with the kids, and took them with his abilities to become an integral part of that session, every one of them. I could always count on him to provide leadership and insight when it was most needed. He was my right-hand counselor, so to speak, in many ways. He loved problem solving, engaging co-counselors and campers in figuring out solutions to problems that came up in our daily lives. At the end of post-camp, I went home thinking, yeah, maybe I'll return. I stayed in contact with the Woodwards, and a couple years later, I got a call from Paul Woodward, said, "Stephen, you're going to love this. Ken and Nancy Atkinson have just taken over as directors of Geneva Glen Camp. And I've been involved with it ever since. I spent 8 years on the board of directors. I've helped construct and design all kinds of things around here, including the rifle range. I've come up and spent time teaching safety to folks at the rifle range. I've worked with Ken in times when it was hard. And one thing that always got me when I walked into that office down there, he'd be behind those 3 screens of the computer staring at them working away. And I'd come in and I'd say, "Hi, Ken." And he'd just rise up out of the chair, hand out, "Steve, good to see you." And he meant it. He meant it. Ken's gifts. I've never met a more authentic man. He's a born leader. He was engaged, and you knew he was listening to you. He was a leader who took time to create other leaders based on their talent, gifts, strength, and skills. He inspired others to believe in themselves, to believe in others in the process, to trust that process, and most of all, to trust that higher power who brought us all here. Knighthood 1. I stood with Ken and received a silver horseshoe. I didn't think anything about it. 2 weeks later, I stood up and they said, you now have a gold star on your shield, along with Ken. First time in 15 years I understand that there were counselors who had both a silver spur and a gold star in the same year. What a gift it has been to have him as a friend, and his being will remain here always. Thank you.
Hi, me again. When Ken joined Cantry in the spring of 2004, we had just returned from an incredible trip to New York City to perform 3 solo concerts as part of the American Choral Directors Association convention. The concerts were amazing, and we returned on a high, knowing that we would need something easy and fun for our last concert. Dick programmed folk songs and spirituals for our concert that was just 8 weeks later. I brought Dick a piece that I had recently heard sung by the Metro State Alumni Choir, with Ken singing the lead solo. Dick said, "Well, this is great. Who is this singing this solo?" And I told him it was my good friend Ken, and very shortly thereafter I introduced them, and Ken joined Cantry. Every time we rehearsed this piece, the choir could tell that we had scored an incredible singer and storyteller. His interpretation brought us to cheers of joy every time we even rehearsed it. This song is quintessential Ken to me. Spiritual, authentic, instructive, and fun. I wished you could have seen our faces every time we sang it. We could scarcely hold in our glee for this magical singer and storyteller we had in our midst. This piece can be found on our album, The Road Home, named after the piece we'll sing for you shortly. Having Ken with us for that made a huge difference for us, and we'll never forget it. We sang it both in concerts many times and also here at Geneva Glen, which was very special for those who were able to be here for that. So we're going to listen to Ken singing this solo with Cantry, singing You Better Mind How You Talk. It's arranged by the late, great Moses Hogan, and I hope you guys can feel a bit of what we felt singing it with him. And just before we begin, I just want to make sure that you're listening. Every time he sang this, when he started to sing it, he would stomp his foot. And you can hear it on this recording if you listen closely. So enjoy You Better Mind How You Talk.
Oh, you better mind how you talk. Yes, you better mind what you're talking about. 'Cause you got to give an account in the judgment. You better mind, you better mind. Oh, you better mind, oh, you better mind, my sister. You got to give an account in the judgment. You better mind, you better mind. Oh, you better mind how you sing. Yes, you better better mind what you're shouting about, 'cause you got to give an account in the judgment. You better mind, you better mind, oh, you better mind, oh, you better mind, my sister. You got to give an account in the judgment. You better mind, you better mind, oh, you better mind, my brother. Oh, you better mind, my sister. You got to give an account in the judgment. You better mind. Oh.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Wirt. I was a camper and on staff in the 90s and early 2000s. I grew especially close with Ken while I was on staff. I'm not one of these people that holds mics very often, so forgive my nerves. I'm in a season of life where I don't often find myself able to linger or savor moments, meals, or quiet instances. So when I received the news about Ken, it sparked something in me to reflect on the things he taught so many of us. I was reminded to intentionally make my morning coffee with a bit of cinnamon and salt, and to savor every sip from beginning to end, just like any proud card-carrying Ken's Coffee Club member should. That when my brain was tired, my body may not be, and when both are, to seek my peace and power. To hold on to rituals, like singing Green Trees as a lullaby to my daughter, or taking a deep inhale every time I arrive at camp. To really look and linger with the stars. To understand the magic of an afternoon nap during a summer rainstorm. Most of us know his spirit is woven into the fabric of our childhoods and adolescence. And I find peace knowing that in having him in my life, he's already woven into my child's. I'll forever be thankful for the simple and extraordinary magic he gave us. To Ken.
Thank you, Reed. Hi, my name is Steve Brownson. I was a camper and counselor, 90s, 2000s, and then on the board for a while after that. I'd like to first start thanking Nancy, the Klein families, Krista, Reed, for the honor of allowing me to speak today. Let's start off with an exercise that's going to feel very familiar to a lot of you. I want everybody to sit up tall, through your nose, big deep breath in. That's weird. More. On the exhale, close your eyes, let everything out. Take another breath in, and as you reach the top of the breath, open your eyes. Take a look up at the sky, the green trees. Look around you, look to your side, look across the council ring, and take a snapshot of this moment. We'll come back to the snapshot in a moment, but for now I'd like to say a few things about Ken. There is so much complexity to the lessons learned and the knowledge imparted on us from Ken Atkinson, but to me there are three that stand out above the rest. First, Ken made everyone he came in touch with feel at ease, and that he could relate to everyone, any age, occupation, walk of life. He made a 21-year-old head of hill feel like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He could speak confidently with contractors working on a project at camp, or a vendor delivering the weekly food order to the kitchen. He could comfort a very anxious camper parent dropping their child off for the first time away from home. The long wind-up of his handshake, the pat on the back, or the greeting of dude was not reserved for a select few. This was shared with everyone to make them feel welcome and accepted. He was able to do this so well because he respected everyone and generally tried to empathize with everyone. Second, leadership comes in many different forms. We know how well he could lead this council ring in story or song. He was also masterful at leading from behind, propping up those around them, giving them the opportunity to lead while knowing that if they slipped up, Ken was there to catch them. Ken was also great at leading by example. In 1995, when I was on dish crew, and my dish crew head's here, Hi, Sean. The last Thursday of World Friendship was all camp cleanup day for the crews. Ken came into the kitchen, pulled us dishes aside to giving us our tasks for the day. We were already exhausted and counting down the meals left that we had to wash dishes. It was 4 at that point. Ken pointed to the kitchen floor, the maroon epoxy floor that somewhat resembled a ladybug with black spots in many places. We had taken for granted that these spots were the floor's natural texture. Ken pointed out this wasn't the case, and that all the black spots could come off the floor. Before any of us could file a complaint about the work ahead of us, Ken grabbed a spray bottle of CDC-10 and a scrub brush, got down on his hands and knees and started scrubbing the floor. Amazingly, the black spots came up. Ken stayed with us cleaning so that we could learn the lesson that even a camp director isn't above cleaning the floor. The job took us a long time to finish, but we were also proud of it. We were able to return the floor to its natural state. Third, Ken had a great sense of adventure. For those that don't know, and you all know now because we talked about it earlier, but Ken grew up in the Park Hill neighborhood of Denver. And one of the most prominent features of Park Hill is the 17th Avenue Parkway. It's a 2-mile stretch of road with some of the largest and oldest trees in the city of Denver. When Ken found out that my wife and I had Kristen bought in a Park Hill, he quickly pointed out that as a kid, he had had a goal to climb every tree on that parkway. He said it took him many years, but he was able to climb them all. He was very, very proud of this accomplishment. This is a testament to his determination and his connection to nature. Now, please go back to that snapshot you took. Ken had us do this exercise as a staff, so as the summer was over and we were back in the real world, we could take out our snapshot and remember what Geneva Glen, our time at Geneva Glen. Ken often referred to camp as the opposite of the real world, a place where kids could come and safely be their true selves. And while I agree, Geneva Glen is different from our everyday lives, I believe that this right here is the real world. This is a world that's created when it's led with empathy, genuine respect, and understanding for everyone in it. This is the world we have when we treat everyone the way Ken treated us. I would like to wrap up on one final point. There is an entire generation of children that are not born yet that are going to feel the impact of Ken's wisdom and compassion. Ken taught us, the lessons Ken taught us are so meaningful that they will be passed on to our children and to their children. Thank you again for allowing me to share these thoughts, and if you get a chance, climb a tree for Ken.
Okay, I'm going to get to lead a song, and it's because Ken and I wrote this song. And what we did was we stole it from another song that was a world friendship song as far as the music, but we put words to it called Minstrel. And I think it's on page 58 or something like that. But you won't have it in this. So I'm saying that for the people that are from Canterbury. The rest of you ought to know the darn song, okay? All right. Now, one thing that he used to do was he'd do it in a round. And the kids kept egging him on to do it in a bigger round. And the one I remember was 16 parts. And it was and he'd go like this. He'd go, and because you have to start really quick with this song. So we'll sing it through one time, and then I'm thinking just 4 parts maybe. So I'm going to start you out. Minstrel, won't you strum for me, ballads sweet and lilting, of the ladies' courts and kings, knights and lords a-tilting. Sing your songs of Arthur's reign, spin your spells of Merlin's fame. Lord Camelot is kindless, at the Glen Geneva, magic still will find. Pretty good song for knighthood, huh? Okay, that way it's a Geneva Glen song. So if we're 4, let's do, you guys will be 1 to this tree right here. You guys will be 2 right to about here. okay? Between you. You guys will be 3, someplace in here. Corey, someplace like. The rest of you will be 4, okay? All right. Now the way you sound, you do it in a round is really fast. It's not like you go, minstrel, won't you strum for me, and then bring. No, it's minstrel, will you minstrel, like that. Okay, you gotta do it quick. So I'm gonna run fast. Okay, so I'll give it. It's gonna min right in there. Does that sound good? I'm not good at this part, Dick. Okay, here we go. Minstrel, won't you, minstrel, won't you, minstrel, won't you, minstrel, won't you? Keep going. It's time. It's time. Oh, good. Thank you.
I'm Rick Rodruck, and I'd like to commend Nancy for being brave enough to give me the microphone. I do want to clarify a couple of things. That whole Godspell Judas thing, we were the only ones with beards. and Ken could sing, so it kind of made sense. There was some typecasting conversations. So Nancy has asked me to read a letter that was sent in, and knowing that she knew that I could read, so evidently I'm qualified. This is from Nancy Lockhart, who was here in 1977, and the kids called her Nancy Longhair because, do you remember the Addams Family with Cousin It? That kind of hair, down to here. They called her Nancy Longhair because Nancy had short hair. So here it goes. It was so shocking to hear of the loss of Sir Knight Ken. My condolences to you and your family. It's hard to imagine such a vital personality being gone. Ken will always be part of the magic. I have such wonderful memories of Gigi, you, and Ken, and always remarkably us as strong as emboldening us as strong creative leaders. Love, Nancy Lockhart. I got great stories. I'm not sharing them. Most of them are inappropriate. There's that Judas thing again. But what I do want to say is my friend Ken, our friend Ken, was, I think, the only person I've ever seen who took the challenge of being a gold star and actually conquered it.
Who's behind me? All right, there's one more letter that Nancy would like us to hear. And this is a letter that's written from Sarah and Jack Connor. And Sarah Walton was her maiden name, and they met at Geneva Glen and now send their kids here. Dear Nancy, it is hard to put into words the impact that both you and Ken have had on my life personally, but also your broader reach. To pursue a life devoted to raising good humans, specifically young adults, is so noble. There are so many things in my life that I practice and rely on that Ken had a direct influence on. Good coffee, always finding time for peace and power, approaching all situations with a calm disposition, genuine smile and joy. Ken always smiled. The news that he had passed stole my breath. Jack and I have been listening to the songs that remind us of our time at camp 20 years ago. We've reflected about how Ken was an example of masculinity and humanity that valued humility, truth, and gentleness. Ken's legacy will live on and on. With love, Sarah and Jack Connor.
Ken could talk. He knew how to spin words. The fact that this ceremony is running late is doing honor to him. In knighthood, one of the ceremonies that culminates at the end of the session is our vigil. This is for our our highest rank of campers, the Sir Knights on probation, and they go through a vigil, guarding over their thought and reflecting over all the things that they've learned at Geneva Glen and the qualities. And Ken would give a sermon. Ken would speak. And he would empower these young men to go back out into the world and take what they've learned here, to take their years and years of knighthood, sometimes 10 years of these values and virtues, and have it go back into their high schools, have it become who they are as young men, as parents, as dads, as who we've become. He nurtured that, and he created that. That ceremony, that vigil ceremony, ended with Ken reading The Man of Integrity by Mary Eddy Baker. And this is a summation of who the man that we know Ken Atkinson is. The man of integrity is one who makes it his constant rule to follow the road of duty, according as truth and the voice of his conscience pointed out to him. He is not guided merely by affections, which may sometime give the color of virtue to a loose and unstable character. The upright man is guided by a fixed principle, which destines him to do nothing but what is honorable and to abhor whatever is base or unworthy. Hence, we find him ever the same. At all times, the trusty friend, the affectionate relative, the conscientious man of business, the pious worker, the public-spirited citizen. He assumes no borrowed appearance. He seeks no mask to cover him, for he acts no studied part. But he is indeed what he appears to be, full of truth, candor, and humanity. In all his pursuits, he knows no path but the fair, open, and direct one, and would much rather fail of success than attain it by reproachable means. He never shows us a smiling countenance while he meditates evil against us in his heart. We shall never find one part of his character at variance with another.
All right. I am Johnny Domenico, and Reed asked me a week ago if I would lead this song, which I'm glad because I wouldn't be able to speak outside of leading a song right now. So, man, I can't even do that. But this song, I think, speaks, if I were to pick one song out of the whole songbook to speak to the values that Ken taught me, this would be the song. Oh, man. Okay. We're going to sing it to the Danny Boy tune, which is my favorite way to sing it because the word humble is the highest note in the whole song, and that tends to humble 99% of the council ring. Today it'll be just 95 because Cantorai is here, so I'm glad that we can have them with us. But I think let's just go ahead and get started. It will start with, I would be true, for there are those who trust me. I would be pure, for there are those who care. I would be strong, for there is much to suffer. I would be brave, for there is much to dare. I would be friend of all the foe, the friendless. I would be giving and forget the gift. I would be humble, for I know my weakness. I would look up and laugh and love and lift.
Oh gosh, it's me again. I gotta find my paper. Okay. This next song has always been a favorite of Ken's. The version that is in the Geneva Glen songbook on page 9, I believe, if you have a book with you, has 3 verses, the third of which was written by GG alum and fervent GG supporter Joseph Uemura. Joe attended Geneva Glen in the 50s. We recently discovered that Joe's father, a longtime Baptist minister in Denver, knew Harold Gilmore through their work together on the Denver Council of Churches. If you know your Geneva Glen history, that's how Geneva Glen got started, was through the Denver Council of Churches. We now know that how Joe knew about and attended Geneva Glen. I was privileged to meet Joe on several occasions when we happened to stumble up to camp at the same time. What a remarkable man. During World War II, many Japanese nationals and even U.S. citizens of Japanese descent were forced into internment camps. During this time, the governor of Colorado made the decision to welcome Japanese people to Colorado. He was the only governor in this nation that did this. Joe and his family helped many families to settle and find jobs and start new lives here in Colorado. Nancy asked that we sing this today, as the third verse is especially poignant in honor of Ken, as he began attending Geneva Glen when he was 7 years old, and he headed west when he was 67. The verse Joe wrote says, "Now 60 years have come and gone, and I can't keep from singing."
Geneva Glen has filled my heart. Those memories still are clinging. Now 60 years have come and gone, and I can't keep from singing. And I can't keep from singing.
Okay, friends, let's stand in fellowship.
These gifts from Ken have already been carried on by all of you, and they're going to continue to carry on for generations to come.
Of the greatest gifts he gave us, it's this one. It's fellowship. It's being here together. There's no better way we can honor such an incredible man than singing and pouring our hearts into everything that he gave us. Let's do that. We're on the upward trail. We're on the upward trail. We're on the upward trail. On the upward, singing, singing, everybody singing, everybody sing, glory. We're on the upward trail, on the upward trail, on the upward trail, on the upward, singing, singing, everybody singing, everybody sing, glory. Trail on the upward trail, on the upward trail, on the upward, singing, singing, everybody singing, everybody sing, glory.
In case you didn't know it, when we had our fire and we lost our lodge and our kitchen and everything, Mr. Gilmore had the kids go up the hill to Vespers to be safe. And they sang We're on the Upward Trail.
Let's do Swing Low. When we do it, when we sing it for Ken, we do it slowly. Nice and slow. We don't rush this one. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get to heaven before I do, coming for to carry me home. Tell all my friends I'm coming after you, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Geneva, we love you, your wonderful fragrance of pine. Amidst the splendor of lavender columbine, our hearts are loyal with wonderful thoughts and truths. Geneva, our lives have been bettered by you. Green trees around
Nancy, are you, hi. Are you going to go over there for